He's also facing some other challenges at school. So, all right, we are good to go. All right, welcome. Those of you who may be joining with us online and everybody here in the house. A couple things to remind everybody of. Our missions week is coming up quick. It's the first week of February, and January 31st is our missions banquet. All right, so this Sunday we will have a sign-up list out in the foyer, and it's no charge this year. We're covering it this year, and we just want everybody to come be a part. Come fellowship one with another. We'll be challenged in our faith for missions, all of those good things. So circle that day. Saturday, January 31st, I think we have it 5 to 7. I'll have to look. But anyway, and then this Sunday there will be a sign up so that we know how many to order food for. That's really what the sign up's for, okay? So that's coming up. We got some missionaries coming in to join us. So Wednesday, February 4th, all right, we're going to have a missionary that's going to be here in the house with us, and we want a good showing that night, all right? So if you don't normally come out on a Wednesday night, make it a point. Just come out that week. The missionary, Laura Goodrich, is traveling from Springfield, Missouri, all the way here to spend some time with us and share about what God's doing in South Africa. So it'd be great to have a great showing from Faithbridge Church on Wednesday the 4th, okay? So circle that day. It's going to be a great week. All right, I think that's everything, all the housekeeping.
February 8th is the Super Bowl party.
Oh, yes. Not everybody comes to that, but we typically try to make a fun event where games are played and games are watched, and there's usually a serious game watching room and a non-serious game watching room. So we will do something just as a church family to hang out together and fellowship. So if you're interested in that, that's going to be February 8th for the Super Bowl, okay? Even though we can't call it a Super Bowl party and all that fun stuff, we're just getting together, all right? Okay, so tonight I want to walk through a story that always captures my attention, and it's one that I heard a couple different perspectives on some things in the story, and so I want to talk about that tonight. It's found in John chapter 21, all right? The last chapter of John. It's going to be verses 1 through 14. It's a really neat story, all right? And in this story, there's some very particular events that take place that we're going to talk about. We're going to shed some light on, and then we're going to discover the truths that we can take away from this passage, all right? So, John chapter 21, if we could have somebody read 1 through 3, or sorry, let's go 1 through 6, and then we'll do 7 through 9, and then 10 through 14, okay?
You go first.
Afterward, Jesus appeared again to his disciples by the Sea of Galilee. It happened this way. Simon Peter, Thomas, also known as Didymus, Nathanael from Cana in Galilee, the sons of Zebedee, and 2 other disciples were together. "I'm going out to fish," Simon Peter told them, and they said, "We'll go with you." So they went out and got into the boat, but that night they caught nothing. Early in the morning, Jesus stood on the shore, but the disciples did not realize that it was Jesus. He called out to them, "Friends, haven't you any fish?" "No," they answered. He said, "Throw your net on the right side of the boat, and you will find some." When they did, they were unable to haul the net in because of the large number of fish.
Okay, next.
7 through what?
7 through 9.
That disciple whom Jesus loved therefore said to Peter, "It is the Lord." When Simon Peter heard that it was the Lord, he put on his outer garment, for he was stripped for work, and threw himself into the sea. The other disciples came in the boat, dragging the net full of fish, for they were not far from the land, but about 100 yards off. When they got out on land, they saw a charcoal fire in place, with fish laid out on it and bread.
Okay.
Oh, are we still reading?
We are.
Where? Sorry.
10 through 14.
trying to figure out what version you were reading. I was
Oh.
switching around.
Is it amplified?
That's ESV.
Oh,
ESV,
yes.
okay, I just switched there. Jesus said to them, "Bring some of the fish that you have just caught." So Simon Peter went aboard and hauled the net ashore full of large fish, 153 of them. And although there were so many, the net was not torn. Jesus said to them, "Come and have breakfast." I don't know how far you said.
14.
Okay. Now none of the disciples dared ask him, "Who are you?" They knew it was the Lord. Jesus came and took the bread and gave it to them, and so with the fish. This was now the third time that Jesus was revealed to the disciples after he was raised from the dead.
All right, this is an action-packed scene that we get here in John's account. So let's recap some of the things that are going on. Let's, start at the beginning of the narrative and let's just highlight some of the things that stood out to us that we see happening. All right, what's going on?
So the disciples have gone back to doing what they did before Jesus was on the earth with them, leading them.
Yep. What else?
So just keep
Yeah,
going.
yeah. I mean, you don't have to, but
Yeah.
I just want to walk through the highlights of the story now, the
Okay.
things that stand out. There's important pieces here. That's one of them.
So then Jesus appears on the shore, but they don't recognize him
Mm-hmm.
even when he talks to them.
Right?
Yeah, I mean, sorry. What's the original question?
We're just highlighting
We're highlighting the big thematic
events.
things that are happening.
Struggling in
I
it.
just said, I'm
People
sorry,
are
my
struggling.
brain's not quite turned on. I see. Yeah, I think it's funny that Peter threw himself into the water. He threw himself into the sea, and everyone else is still struggling to get the fish to the shore. I think that's funny.
That's another highlight that we'll talk about. Okay?
But this is the third time Jesus has appeared to them? Is that what the text said?
Yep.
So they would have recognized him in some fashion.
They eventually do, obviously,
Yeah.
but initially they didn't. Yeah. What else?
Well, obviously, you have the miracle of getting the full haul of fish.
Yep, we're going to talk about that.
153, very specific.
We're going to talk about that. Okay. There's also...
I'm sorry, I was just going to say he's already cooking fish before they get to the shore.
He's already prepared, cooking fish, right? So we'll talk about that, but some are like, where did he get the fish? We don't know. But there's something unique about the fire that some point to. So there's some pretty significant markers in this story, all right? So the first thing that's interesting here is we see that Jesus finds them kind of in the same place he found them to start with. So we see John kind of bookends the story, right? He finds them going about their daily jobs. We know that Peter was a fisherman. He calls them out to be fishermen, to follow him. And here, they're doing the same thing as they were at the beginning, right? So that's an interesting parallel that John paints into the picture, okay? Now you keyed on it, Julian, when you said they're doing what they did before, all right? If you look at verse 3, all right, the NIV says it this way: I'm going out to fish. All right? So the Greek, let me see, how did I do that? The Greek language positions this phrase, okay, with all of its structure to indicate a return to their former occupation. This isn't like, we're hungry, let's cast a line in the water. So there's this unique turn that John is showing here in this story, that even though they'd seen Jesus twice before, something has shifted. Their world seems different. They're like, well, that didn't work. Let's go back to what we did the first time, what we were doing before all this started. Right? That's the indication we get by that, which is followed up with a unique perspective of that they were fishing all night. Does anybody know why they would fish at night? And by the way, somebody does have to jump on Facebook in case people want to contribute. Our normal Facebook monitors are not here, so
So I don't know if it's accurate, but in the Chosen, they showed them fishing at night because there was some sort of tax that they had to pay. I don't remember the details, but they had to do it surreptitiously in order for the Romans not to know that they were fishing or something. So I have no idea if that's what's.
It's entirely plausible.
Yeah.
But culturally, the more probable explanation is that they would fish through the night, so that when the markets opened in the morning, they had fresh fish for the market. Okay. So it could be both. I'm not discounting what the Chosen did. I'm sure they did research. But the more plausible reality is that haul of fish that they bring in would be prepared and go to the market. So when the market opens, they got fresh fish ready to go. All right. So it was a normal thing. So when they said, I'm going to fish, it was understood we're going to fish through the night, so we're ready to go for the market in the morning. That was a normal thing. Okay. So it is interesting, though, that as they return to their former life, their former occupation, they find no fruit. I do find that interesting when we think about how that applies to us spiritually, to people who have chosen to follow Christ, and then, for whatever reason, may think about turning back to their former ways. Right? There's clearly something being said about choosing to take up the call of Jesus and follow the Lord, and then for whatever reason turning back to our previous ways and not finding fruit there. There's a reality that the fruit that we intend to see, the fruit that brings us life, is in following Christ, not apart from Christ. This is an interesting perspective that Jesus makes known when he says, hey, by the way, put your nets on the other side. And clearly you wouldn't think that a 4-foot difference in where they place their nets would be anything sufficient. Clearly, this is a miracle directed by Jesus that's teaching something here. Okay? So, let's see. So now we have the issue of Peter, right? When he hears that's the Lord. All right? So the ESV said that he had taken off his outer garment for work. That was a typical thing, right? So they'd have that outer garment on while they're just like us. Like if I was going to work in a sweatshirt and I know I'm going to be sweating, I'm not wearing the sweatshirt. So he puts it back on because they would have been working in their loincloth, like shorts, right? So it's not so much they didn't want to leave this thing behind or he's worried about someone stealing his stuff. He wanted to be presentable even if he's wet. He's not trying to walk up to Jesus in his underwear, right? That's the reality of the scenario. But I did hear somebody say just recently about this story, which is what added some depth to this. If you were Peter and you had just denied the Lord 3 times, and then somebody says, there's the Lord, and your reaction is to dive off the boat, even though you're only 100 yards away, there's clearly some kind of intent, right? Now, this is not scriptural. This was somebody's adding human nature to the perspective, and I thought it was kind of fun. But what would you think your motivation would be for trying to beat everybody else to Jesus?
You want to prove to Jesus that what you said when you promised that you were going to follow him, you're following through with that. You want to prove to him your intent, your loyalty, your love for him. Maybe even saying, I'm more loyal or more in love with you than these other guys. I'm swimming to the shore. This is how committed I am to getting to you.
Even though I denied you, look, I'm trying to make up for it. Yeah, absolutely. Try to make that over-the-top gesture. That's something I'd do, right? What else? Anybody?
I think what I would do is if there was going to be a chastisement or rebuke, I'd want to get it out of the way where my friends can't see.
And that was the perspective. That if Jesus was gonna get on Peter for rebuking him or for denying him, it's easier to handle without everybody else watching that scenario. So both of those are completely plausible motivations. Clearly, the Word does not tell us what his motivation is, and we're not making that a spiritual truth we're trying to inject into this. We're just talking about human nature here to make the story, more full. It's certainly a full story. All right, so that's an interesting perspective why he does that. All right, so now their net is so full they can't bring it into the boat, which is the normal custom. Right, so this is out of the ordinary. Normally they would pull the the net into the boat and they bring it all in that way. In this case, they just have to move the boat in and drag the net with him, right? So I remember seeing in The Chosen, they had to repair all the nets, right? Repairing those fishing nets is a toilsome job, right? So the fact that this net is so full they can't bring it in, but yet it doesn't break as they drag it to shore is significant, right? It's significant for a couple reasons. A, they don't have to repair the net, but B, spiritually, I'm thinking about the work Jesus did to put the fish in the net, to bring the fish in. If I'm thinking about the work of Jesus, how would that give me some kind of shot in the arm spiritually if I'm thinking about that perspective? Now, and I know I'm reaching, I'm not trying to make theology out of this, but again, it's just another perspective. Jesus said to do that, and it didn't break, and nothing was lost. What would that say about Jesus doing the work?
That we don't have to rely on our own strength or abilities. To, he's going to entrust us. He's going to challenge us to do something, and he's going to help us to be successful in that effort.
Yeah. He's the one that upholds what his intentions are. He's the one that upholds the direction, upholds the mission. He's the one that does it, and in the process, nothing's going to be lost, right? Not one of those fish fell out of the thing. The complete haul came in, at least that we know of. It doesn't say fish jumped out of it, but typically once they're in the net, they're in the net. And the only way they'd lose them is if they broke the net open. So not only do we have Jesus sustaining the work, but we have Jesus protecting the work. It's not going to fall apart when Jesus is the one in control. Nobody's going to get lost out of that scenario, okay? So that's an encouraging thing for us, all right? Now, what about the burning coals? And I know I'm moving a little bit quickly tonight, but what about the burning coals? It says, the fire of burning coals. What would this bring a reader's thoughts to? Remember who the first one is that comes to the fire. I'm going to give too much away. Remember who the first one is to come to the fire. Where's another time where you see that?
When Jesus is being taken to Pilate, he's standing warm and his hands by the fire, and Jesus, he sees Jesus.
And that's when Peter does what?
He denies him the third time. Yeah.
So we have to wonder, did John insert this detail on purpose? That the last time Peter was surrounding a fire dealing with Jesus, that we know of, there could have been other points in between there, but he's making a point to talk about the fire, right? So there's some that think that this is a call back to the last time Peter denied Jesus standing around the fire in Caiaphas's courtyard, okay? And now he's coming back to a fire, and it's not Caiaphas, and it's not the judgmental rulers that are there, it's Jesus himself. And now he's in this restorative moment with Jesus. The first time it was an abandonment, this time it's a restorative moment. So some think that John's drawing a connection here, right? It's a literary theme. It's pretty cool to think about. We don't know for certain that was his aim, but it's neat in literary thought.
Yeah, I just looked it up because you mentioned it and I was curious, but this little phrase, the fire of coals, or however it's only used twice.
Yep.
And the only other time was when
it's in the courtyard.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So it's interesting. In Scripture, the only other time that wording is used is around the fire when Peter betrays and denies Christ. Okay? So there's some really deep, that's why I said this story is intriguing because it has all of these markers that they used. And to think that the writers, and excuse me if you don't like me calling them writers, but the author is ultimately the Holy Spirit. So I find myself creating separation between author and writer, right? Because they're the writer, but the Spirit is the author. Okay? So as they're writing this, they're certainly using significant literary skill as they're putting these thoughts together and putting their accounts together. So that one's a neat one. Okay, now let's come to the last one that I really want to talk about here, and it's this specific number. All right, you said it when you were reading it, Sam. That's a very specific number. Absolutely, it's a very specific number, and it's odd that it's so specific. It's included in John's account, so it leaves scholars wondering, what's the significance of this number? Okay, so has anybody heard anything or have any thoughts about the significance of 153?
And you can't Google it right now.
Yeah, listen to you over here. Blue Letter Bible, looking up wording.
Does it have anything to do with the omniscience of Jesus? That he would know exactly how many fish were?
So there's not a definitive answer in any one direction. Certainly, I think that's part of that equation. Absolutely. I think the number means something, but it's never been completely settled on exactly what it means. But yeah, that's a good one. The knowledge of Christ, knowing exactly what needs to be in that. What else? What's another one?
Trying to come up with an algebraic formula that calculates out to 7 or something. Aha.
Well, you're close. You're close because there's a Jewish tradition. It has its Jewish roots, or its roots in Jewish literary things. It's called gematria. Okay, Gematria, and it is. Let's see. It's a numerical assignment to each letter of a word. So if you reverse it, they're saying, oh, John's pointing to a specific word using these numbers. All right? So some of the words people float around out there as being part of that gematria idea is a phrase, the church of love, or the name Simon, or ichthus, which is the Greek word for fish, or engedi, or anegleim, which are two names found in Ezekiel that refer to the tabernacle and Revelation. So there's lots of discussion on that side, but it's extremely difficult to find the word with the number. Sometimes it's easier to find the number when you go, oh, that word is sevens. That's the Lord's numbers, right? So, but when you try to find the word working backwards from the number, it's far more difficult to nail down. So that's one of the leading ideas, is that there's some kind of symbolism connecting the numbers to a word. We just don't know what those words are in today's world. All right. The other leading probability for this is that there was a Jewish thought in that time that there was 153 species of fish in the world. I don't know how they know that, but it's what I discovered as one of the more probable reasons for this. And so taking that Jewish thought and that belief that there was 153 what do you call it? Types of fish in the world. Some think that means that this is an extension of the idea that the gospel is for the whole world. That this net bringing in 153 fish is representing all of the fish that exist, all the types, meaning that this kingdom is going to be expanded beyond Israel to all of the world. So that's the more probable one people lean to, but the gematria one's also in there. Yeah.
I have a message from Pastor Ray. It says that 153 is a triangular number.
Okay.
Apparently 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus continued on until all the way plus 17 equals 153. It's linked by some to the perfection of the Old Covenant.
Oh.
10 commandments fulfilled in the New Testament, 7 spiritual gifts representing all saved through the Trinity. So 10, 7, 3. Don't really know what that means. Sorry.
So it's a salvific thing, right? Through that perfect Trinity is where we find the complete salvation. Go ahead.
And then there's more. He says that in Hebrew, gematria, the letter to number value, Ani Elohim, I am God, sums to 153.
Oh, there you go. So there is, again, it's not quite on the level of the Nephilim, but this is another one of the cases where we don't have a singular clarity on what this means, but there's a lot of reasonable things that are interesting to delve into, and it may, in the vast sovereign mindset and omniscience of God, it may be all of them. We may see each one of these and go, each one of these contribute to our understanding of the lordship of Christ, his work of salvation, his intent to save all of the world, including these people he's called, like Peter, on you, when he tells them, you're now Peter on this rock. I will build my church. So there's so many angles to this. So it may not just be one.
It could just be that John is very detail-orientated, and these fish are ultimately going to get sold to the market, and they probably are sold by quantity.
Yep.
And so if they caught 153 and maybe they ate 3 fish with Jesus, so he went to the market with 150, and he had to split it equally among the disciples, the proceeds from the sale. So he was very specific about how many fish were caught, because he wanted to make sure the records were correct and everyone got a fair share from the sale.
And in that case, we're all significantly spiritualizing something where John's like, look, guys,
I just want to know.
I want you to know it was 153. Right. That was it. There's been some rumors out there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You know,
if any of the disciples think they don't get a fair share on that sale, it was 153. And remember, we ate 3, so we're left with 100. And it's funny because, you know, it is true that we can get into that over-spiritualization of stuff where we're trying to, you know, flip words around or find deep meaning. And sometimes it is just a narrative and it's a detail. And it's funny, though, because in the thing I was listening to this morning, they were talking about when we're reading the Bible and they've got these narratives, and compared to like a narrative that we might read today where there's all the details are in there and there's huge gaps. And one of the reasons for that is we're supposed to focus on what is in there.
Right.
Don't worry about how did you get from here to here. That's not important. What's important is here and here. And that's what you look at. So from that perspective, you would think, okay, there's got to be a reason why he chose to put in that particular detail. He doesn't say how many of the fish they ate. That's not important, but he does specifically say 153. So again, you're right. We don't really know.
Yeah. But it, you know, again, not at the level of the things like the Nephilim, but it is interesting to let your mind wander and think about those things, because it's certainly included for a reason. Yeah. And to your point, the very last verse of John's account is Jesus did many other things as well. Yeah. If every one of them were written down, I suppose that even the whole world would not have room enough for the books that would be written. So there are so many other things Jesus did, but by the direction of the Spirit, these are the things that we needed. Yeah. And so it's interesting to think that way too. Yeah.
I was reading a commentary on it, and this guy at the very end of it, he listed all the different things that we were literally just talking about, the intricate number things and whatnot, and then he put at the very end, he's like, personally, I think that John's a fisherman, and he's just bragging to all the other fishermen in the world how big of a catch he got.
You know what I mean?
I'm going with that.
It's the fish tail. He's like, look, I got a fish, and it was this big, and no one's gonna believe me. I'm putting it down in my letter. Yeah. So, you know, and the reality is, it could be all of those things still. In the great omniscient ability of God, it could be all of those things. And so, but the reality is, we get these images throughout this whole story of the redemptive work of God, the passion of the disciples, the hearkening back to Peter's failure. But what we stop short of here is the reinstatement of Peter. That's the next portion, right? So the tender care of Jesus in this moment it's unbelievable. Not only does he show them that their old life is not going to produce the fruit that they think it's going to produce, but it's actually in following Christ. So their obedience to Christ yields the harvest that they were looking for. We look at that and go, hey, our obedience to Christ is ultimately where the fruit of our life is going to fall. That's where it's found, in our obedience to Christ. And then we see the tender care that he's already prepared a fire. Jesus knows it's them. He's on the shore, putting the fire together, cooking fish, getting ready to feed them breakfast, so when they get there, they're ready to go. And again, you get this idea as he starts divvying out the fish, you get the idea of the Last Supper. Here they are again. And so it's a hearken back to Jesus, again, doing these things with them that they're formative, but they're also leading to this moment where, Peter gets this image of Jesus feeding his people, and then he says, Peter, feed my sheep. He literally walks onto the shore, and Jesus is preparing the food, and then he hands it out to them, and then he tells Peter, feed my sheep. So we get this incredible depth to this story that speaks so much to how we follow Christ and to the care with which Jesus actually, it goes back to the scripture from Sunday where Peter encourages the church to cast our cares upon the Lord because he cares for us. That care, it's a tender care. It's a watchful care. That's the image we get here of Christ, this tender, watchful care. He doesn't rebuke them for trying to go back to their old life. He shows them that the fruit is forward in him. And that same thing, that's the biggest thing for me, is as we come to Christ, recognizing that our old ways aren't going to produce the fruit. It's in obedience to Christ. And we can come to him knowing he will feed us and he will care for us, even when things are tough. And so this story is always interesting to me. What else is there? Julian?
Yeah, I'm curious. What he says in verse 12, none of the disciples dared ask him, "Who are you?" They knew it was the Lord. It seems a little odd, right? Because if they knew it was the Lord, they wouldn't ask.
Right.
And if they, why it says they wouldn't dare ask, like there was a fear there, but they knew it was him. That, to me, I don't know why, but that's an interesting.
Just by that interaction, you get the feeling that he looked different, right? What I don't mean different as in they didn't recognize him, but the last time that, of course, it says this was the third time he showed himself to the disciples, but were they there? Were they all there?
Right. I guess what I'm saying is, if it said none of them dared ask, they assumed it was the Lord. But it says they knew it was the Lord.
Yeah.
So
why even say?
Why even say they didn't dare ask? Because why would they ask if they knew?
Right.
So
it's a unique way that John phrased that, right? It's almost like there was a moment at which they were like, "Is that the Lord?"
Yeah.
And then when they drew near, they didn't ask before, but they drew near, like following. Okay. And of course, they set it on the water. That's the Lord. So at some point, before they even get to shore, they don't even have to ask anymore.
Yeah.
But I think it kind of goes back to when Jesus was walking on the water. Now, I don't know for sure, but the story of Jesus walking on water, like, "Lord, is that you?"
Right.
And like, if that's you, call to us.
Yeah.
Tell us to come out to you.
Who else is walking on water? Right.
You know what I mean? So here's a case where, again, he goes, put your nets on the other side. They immediately catch a bursting net of fish. Who else is going to tell them? It's not Joe Schmo from down the road that knows that, right? So it could be something there.
Maybe, when we talk about how does it apply to us or how does it encourage us, is that idea of, even though we profess our faith in Christ, we have moments still where we doubt.
Lord, is that you?
Exactly. and so to me, when I'm reading this, I'm like, okay, it's okay. They were with Jesus, and there was clearly this confusion or doubt. So when I'm walking with the Lord, I don't have to beat myself up if I'm like, is this really the Lord in this situation, or are you really there, or whatever it is you might be struggling with. It's okay.
We can identify.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that makes me feel better. These guys spent 3 years with him.
Right.
And they still had this moment of ambiguity.
Yeah.
And so those moments when I'm like, I don't know, God, is that really your voice? I don't know. Should I put my nets down on the other side? So we're in good company, I guess.
Right. Or if you witness a miracle of some kind, especially in today's day where it's a medical miracle where we go, well, was that the Lord, or was that, that was just science sort of thing, right?
Yeah.
So we sort of diminish the role of God in our own lives in certain situations. And again, to say, okay, that's all right, that can happen, right? They just had this miracle catch, and then for them to doubt whether it was him or not,
But I think the telling thing is that Jesus brings them near too, right?
Yeah.
He didn't just leave them out there and walk away. He was preparing to care for them. And so I think Jesus does the same things for us. Even in those moments, he brings us near so that doubt is removed.
Yeah.
If we're willing to go, right?
I think if you look at they says that this is the third time. And if you look at the first 2 times, there were clear people having doubts. Like the first time, he reveals himself to the women, and the people and all the other disciples are like, "Yeah, right. That's not." It's literally in the chapter right before it. And so there's doubt in that first time that he appears. And then he appears to the disciples, and they're like, "What?" And the second time he appears is with Thomas, famously doubting. And so it kind of, I feel like it's showing us
how we are supposed, like maybe the first time something happens and God does something, you're like, oh, I don't know. And then maybe the second time there's a little bit less doubt, and then the third time you're like, no, I can't.
Yeah.
I can no longer.
It's got to be God.
It's
Right.
got to be
Can't
God. So
deny
maybe
it, sort
it's
of
showing
thing.
a progression.
Yeah.
And you think about, those are good thoughts, but you also think about how these all tie into the theme of John's gospel, right? And if you want to know the theme of John's gospel, all you need to do is flip back to the end of chapter 20. In verse 30 and 31, it says this: Jesus performed many other signs in the presence of his disciples, which are not recorded in this book. But these are written that you may believe that Jesus is the Messiah, the Son of God, and that by believing you may have life in his name. So even before we get to this next point, like, it's not by chance John dropped that in there. It's not by chance John wrote that. He didn't go, well, this is the end of the book. Oh yeah, I should add this other. No, they certainly knew what they were putting down. And so before we even get to this point, we get the idea that even this story is to reiterate to us the reality of Jesus as the Messiah, even in these moments, that in trusting in him, there's life in his name. And so, side note, I was talking with somebody last week about that very story of Jesus walking on the water, because we were talking about going to see visually the Sea of Galilee. Because in June, I'll be going to Israel, and they're like, when you stand there, like, it's unbelievable. You're like, this can't be the same place. He's like, but the reality of that story that makes it crazy is this person thinks that Jesus was illuminated in some way. And here's the reason. Because it's not like a modern fishing boat where there's these giant lights aimed out at the water to see things. They might have had a lantern at best in their boat, and there's a storm raging. And so for them to even see Jesus out walking on the water, this particular person, though scripture doesn't say it, thinks that there was some kind of illumination that added to them thinking, is that a ghost? Is that a spirit? Right? So there's a whole bunch of really neat things when we start thinking about these stories that are recorded for us. All right? Any last thoughts here on the miraculous catch? Yeah.
Yeah, I think the end of the story, verses 13. Yeah, just verse 13. So Jesus came and took the bread, gave it to them, and so with the fish. I can't read that and not think of the miraculous feeding of the thousands.
That's what I think of first.
Yep.
Yeah, and so
I'm reading this and I get this image of like all the disciples just kind of sitting around twiddling their thumbs, and they're all hungry, and they spent the last 3 years solely relying on the provision of the Lord. It says like they had donations and whatnot.
Yep.
And I get this picture of them being like, well, we can't do that anymore because Jesus isn't here, so we have to go get a job. Like, we have to go back to providing for ourselves. And Jesus is like, I literally fed thousands of people with this. I'm going to use the exact same things to remind you guys that I am your provider.
Yep.
That, like, I'm going to use the bread and the fish again because you guys can't get it. So
Right.
that I am your provider. Yeah.
Right, and the continued fulfillment of Jesus' words as they move from that point into Pentecost, as they're waiting in Jerusalem and they're praying and the Spirit comes, and it's a fulfillment of the other things Jesus said. And now the church is launched, and what do we see happens in the church? People start coming in generosity and giving and laying things so that the church can move forward. So even in that, you see the nets bringing in by the hand of the Lord to enable the work that Jesus left them to do. It's phenomenal the way this all ties together. So there's lots of encouragement in it, is what I'm saying. And so it encourages my heart, because I'd like to think I would think way too much like the disciples. I mean, there's no way around it, right? I do it enough as it is, and we have all the rest of the story before us, right? They didn't at this point. So I find encouragement through the Word, and to see the tenderness and the care, the watchful care of Jesus just serves to fully support the rest of the apostles' writings through the New Testament. That gives us encouragement and faith to keep moving. So anything else? We're going to end just a couple minutes early tonight, but I just wanted to share that with you. It encourages me. Hope it encourages you tonight. And we won't be here on Sunday, so we'll be praying for everybody. We're heading down to Orlando. That Don't stay home, all right? Still come to church. We have phenomenal pastors in this church, so please come, be a part, all right? But we're going to go try to catch our breath and breathe for a few minutes and then hit the ground running again. So thanks for being a part tonight. Thanks to everybody there at home. Have a great rest of the week, and we'll see everybody on Sunday.